Oh, hey. Get my six. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Homesteading Off the Grid, the most awesomest homesteading channel on the entire internet that has absolutely nothing to do with homesteading whatsoever. What a beautiful view you have on my six here today. No, I'm not up in the woods behind the campground where I usually make these videos. I'm sitting here at the head of my pond. Today, as of this recording, it's April 15th. Whoo, tax deadline. Yeah, I made it. Hope y'all did too. Hope it wasn't too painful. It's the first day that I mowed my grass this year. I always put off the first mow until about a month after everybody else, and it's for the pollinators. Before a lot of the flowers come out, before there are a lot of blossoms on trees, the pollinators that are out early need the grass. So I'll let the grass go to seed because at some point through that process, the honeybees, the butterflies, they're actually getting pollen from the grass because there's just not enough flowers out there, not enough blossoms. So we're past that. The fruit orchard has blossomed. There's wildflowers starting to pop up. People's, tulips are out, rose bushes are open. So I went ahead and cut the grass, and it was uncomfortably long, especially as my son and I were playing football in the field every day. But it's done. I weed-eated all around the pond. I weed-eated around the 60 fruit trees down here. And I was going to do so much more today until I got to this part of the pond here with my weed eater. And I got this view. And I thought, man, this place ain't going nowhere, neither am I. I think it's time to just sit underneath this shade tree for a while and take in the view. I mean, that's why I created this view with all the thousands of trees we planted, keeping everything maintained. It wasn't just to constantly work on it and never enjoy it. So this is how I'm going to spend the rest of my afternoon. So I figured, well, while I'm sitting here, may as well take this opportunity to make a video. I haven't made one for a few days, and it's because we had a very busy weekend. And what I wanted to talk to you about today, it kind of is largely to do with our weekend, and I think it'll make sense by the time I get to the end. So if you've been following me for a while, I don't watch news. I don't care about politics. I got a gate down there at the end of the driveway, and I keep it shut to keep the lunatics on the other side of it. And me and my family, we just live our best life up here on the property and among our very selected friends that we associate with on the other side of the gate when we go do the things we do, like our kids' sports and whatnot. And we turn off the noise of the rest of the world. And that's kind of the story for today, because a good friend of mine, my longest running, oldest friend, I mean, we've been friends since the first time he beat me up on the bus back in kindergarten, still friends to this day, texted me, I guess a couple of days ago, as you know, Iran, the People's Republic of Iran, whatever they are, whatever they call their government, they launched an attack on Israel. So my friend texts, he goes, "Did World War III just start?" And I said, "I don't know, man. I don't pay attention to that stuff." And he says, "You should talk about it on your next video." And I said, "Yeah, right. Like lose half my viewers." And he says, "Why? Do they not support Israel?" And I said, "It's not about who they support and who they don't." I said, "It's about, most of the folks that follow me because they're like-minded. They turn off the noise. They avoid toxic people, toxic situations, the bad and nasty news of what's going on around the world. And this just isn't the kind of thing we talk about." And he says, "You should talk about it anyway." And being that he is my longest running, oldest friend, been friends since that first time he beat me up on the bus back in kindergarten. Because back then parents would let kids work things out, and that would happen. And then you beat him up, and he'd beat you up again. You'd beat him up again. That happens enough times. And then you say, "You know what? This is stupid. Why don't we just be friends?" And me and this guy's been friends for the last 45 years. So I said, well, I will talk about it, and here's how I'm going to talk about it. So that happened Saturday, all right, late afternoon Saturday. Well, Saturday evening, my wife and our son and myself went into Charlottesville into town there to go to a Sam Hunt concert there at John Paul Jones Arena, where the UVA basketball teams, men and women's, play. We get one or two good shows there every year. This last year we got to see Journey there, which, as many of you know, is fronted by Arnel Pineda, the Filipino guy. My wife's Filipina, if you're new to the channel. I've lived there for many years. So this time we got to see Sam Hunt. This is the second time we got to see Sam Hunt because we saw him in Norfolk last summer. We saw him at the beginning of the current tour, and he announced on stage several times this past weekend that this was the last show of this tour. So we got to see him in the beginning and the end. And I'll tell you, his voice sounded as good at the end of the tour as it did at the beginning of the tour. He's a great entertainer. I'm surprised at how many people don't know him. I posted on our Sick Twisted Humor Facebook page that we had just gotten back from the show that night, from the Sam Hunt show. And half the people were like, who? Sam who? Seems like the only people that really knew him were the girls. If you know him, you probably understand why. So on the way into town, I was thinking about what just happened because I'd seen it pop up as a news alert on my phone or whatever. Iran just did this thing to Israel. And I thought, well, I've only got 1/8 of a tank of gas. I may as well stop and fill up before I go to the show because gas might be going up here soon because that's typically what happens there. And then I thought, should I tell my wife and kid about this? And I said, no, absolutely not. Why? Well, because we're going to this concert to have fun. And what will their knowledge of what just happened have to do with the outcome of what happens? And why would I piss on our parade we're getting ready to go to, right? So we go to the concert, and it was, like I said, it was a great show. And I want to tell you this, if you don't know anything about Sam Hunt, I use him as an example of what it's like for somebody to have a winning mindset. I use this a lot with my son because my son is obsessed with football. He loves basketball. He's obsessed with that when it's basketball season. In case you didn't know this about Sam Hunt, and if you don't know who he is, he's a country music singer, but his style of country music is very unique. It's really like R&B, almost like a little bit of rap. Well, my wife's here. You want to say hi, honey? You want to just pop in here and say hi and just give me a few minutes and I'll wrap this up? No, this is for YouTube. I've been going for a while, so.
Hi, everybody.
This is my beautiful bride, Dearly, a.k.a. Giggly Girl. I asked her if she wanted to come hang out with me here at the head of the pond for the afternoon, and she says I'll come down later. So I waited, and when she didn't come, I thought, well, I'll just make my YouTube video for the day, and then now I get halfway into it, and then here she comes.
Yeah.
But it's better.
Annie, you're shirtless.
Yeah.
And I'm wearing jacket.
Yeah, because I'm from the South, and she's from the Pacific South
but
Islands.
Yeah, if
I'm from North America, and she's from. Okay, what?
If we're in the shade, I get cold, but if we go under the sun, I get hot. Crazy, no?
Yeah.
Okay, guys, I just want to say hi. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, give me just a few minutes.
Okay.
I'll wrap this up quickly.
Okay.
This is a request. I actually had a request to talk about this, so I'll come get you when I'm finished, huh? She knows 3 minutes for me means 20, but I'll try to make it like 8. It'll be soon, honey, okay?
Oh, yeah, take your time.
Okay, which, by the way, is the name of probably Sam Hunt's biggest hit, Take Your Time. Y'all know that song? Look it up on YouTube after you've watched this video. If you don't, you'll see who he is. Great entertainer. But here's why I use him as an example with my son, and why he's a really good example for everybody in regards to what it's like to have a winning mentality. So before Sam Hunt was one of the biggest current country music singers there is, and people are polarized about him. A lot of people don't like him because his new unique style is so different than historical country music, what might be considered the norm or the standard. But younger folks like it, and he's kind of changed the genre a bit with his style. So people who just don't want to put everything in a box like me, I mean, I wrote a book called The Box about living outside the box, loves the music. So but he does have a wonderful song called Take Your Time, and that's a lot of the traditional country music fans hate that song, even though it's his biggest hit, because he actually speaks the lyrics in a spoken form, almost like rap, but then he sings the chorus. You gotta check it out if you don't know who he is. So, but before he was a country music star, he was a football player, and he was actually a Division I football player, and he played for or maybe it was D2, University of Alabama State or something like that. But they played a lot of D1 schools from the SEC, like the University of Florida and all this. He was a quarterback, and he was actually so good that some NFL teams were scouting him. Well, he ended up getting an injury. I believe it was a shoulder injury. Don't quote me on that, but I'm thinking, if memory serves, it was a shoulder injury, and it was one of those career-ending injuries. However, he didn't want to accept defeat. He still tried to rehab from the injury and continued to go forward. And the Kansas City Chiefs, like the last 2 years, Super Bowl champions, actually invited him to come to their training camp to work out with them, because even though he didn't get to finish his college career because of that injury, and even though they knew he was hurt, that's how good he was. And they were kind of thinking, if this guy is past this injury, if this is behind him, we can utilize him. That's how good he was. So he went to train with the Kansas City Chiefs for a while, but he just didn't make it. Well, so what would most people do in a situation like that? Oh my gosh, I've been wanting to do this one thing my whole life, and it didn't work out. Well, I'll tell you, I know a lot of people who were in that situation who just gave up, not just at what it was that they were trying to pursue, but they gave up on life. And then they have spent the last several decades saying, I was going to be this or I was going to be that, but then this happened and it didn't work out. And well, now here I am. That's why I'm unsuccessful. That's why I don't have the life that I want to have. That's why I'm not living the dream. It's because I was going to do this thing, but then this external occurrence happened, which put an end to my dream. And so, well, what was I supposed to do? Well, I've spent the last 30 years as a failure. I've got to spend the next 30 years as a failure, because when your dreams don't work out, that's what you do, right? Yeah, if you're a loser, and if you have zero resilience, that's what you do. You just roll over and die, but you better hope you die, because if you live, you're just going to live a miserable life. Well, that's not what Sam Hunt thought you do, or thought that you do in a situation like that. What did he do in a situation like that? Well, he thought, well, I guess it wasn't in the cards for me to be in the NFL, but my gosh, I'm passionate about music. He'd been playing his guitar and singing for many, many years. So he says, if I can't make it in the NFL, I'll make it in Nashville. He moves to Nashville and he starts playing music, writing songs, going out there and trying to meet influential people in the industry. He finally got some breaks in that people said, okay, if you can write a decent song, we'll buy it from you, but our guy's going to sing it. And he ended up, before he even had his first breakout song, Take My Time, he wrote songs for Keith Urban, Kenny Chesney, I believe, but that got his foot in the door. And then once his foot was in the door, he finally said, okay, I'm here. I've done the work involved to get here. Now I'm going to write my songs my way. I'm not going to write a song for Keith Urban the way Keith Urban's style sounds. I'm going to write a song for Sam Hunt, and I want my own unique style. And that's when he did what he did. He made Take My Time, had a bunch of hits off that album. So anyway, now he's been touring for the last 10 years, putting out more albums. So I use him as an example with my son, because my son's like, I'm going to be in the NFL. If I can't make it as a quarterback, I'll be a tight end. I'm like, that's great. And pursue your passion diligently. And he does, and he works out 2 or 3 times a day. And I get out here with him and help him, and I help coach his teams and whatnot. Had a game on Saturday. So Saturday morning after the concert, the concert was Saturday night. The game was Saturday morning, 8 a.m. game. So we're out there early for that. But understand, and I'm not saying have a plan B, because a lot of times I kind of think if you have a plan B, then that means failure for plan A is an option. Don't have a plan B, but be resilient. Be resilient and understand, like it says, when one door closes, another door opens. If you're living in a haunted house. No, something like that. But just because this dream doesn't work out, I wanted to be an Olympic middle distance runner. Didn't work out. So then I thought, well, I'll be an Olympic marathon runner. As I lost my leg speed and got a little older, that didn't work out either. Wanted to be a famous writer. said, hey, I can come up with some pretty good stories. I can write them down here. And well, that's worked out slightly, moderately, marginally, but not so much. But I've done all right telling stories on social media. So you never give up. If one dream comes to an end, start the next one, even if you've got to create the beginning. And Sam Hunt has done that. And no one ever knew what kind of quarterback Sam Hunt would have been in the NFL because he didn't make it. But he's a chart-topping country music singer that entertains tens of thousands of fans anytime he puts on a concert. And great guy. He's had 2 kids in the last 22 months. If you're not a fan, at least check him out and give his music a listen to, okay? Now, what's this have to do with Iran attacking Israel? This, and I learned this years ago, I don't have to accept these evil acts where these evil people do evil things to others is unacceptable to me. But I accept the fact that I live in a world where these things happen. And I accept the fact that no matter how irate or angry or upset I get about it, it's not going to change these situations. All I'm going to do is negatively affect the mood of myself and my family. So Sunday, rather than sitting around watching for the latest updates to see if the U.S. has retaliated against Iran for retaliating against Israel, who's probably going to retaliate against Iran, blah, 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 we went hiking. We went hiking here locally in our county, and we hiked for 2 hours. It was a beautiful hike. We got to take our boots off and cross a ice cold stream a couple times, and we were so happy to see so many people out there. Now, we go to several different spots. Most of the time we go to spots where we never see anybody, but on this particular hike, we went to one of our favorite hikes where there's always a lot of people, and we saw people. There was a group of hikers there from Czechoslovakia, 15 people, adults, not students from UVA, though we did see several students. We saw 3 students from Howard University. We small talked with people along the trail. And we met a woman and her late 20-ish-year-old son. She was probably late 50s, he was late 20s, who the woman was here from Indiana, hiking right outside of Charlottesville, Virginia, with her son who lives in Baltimore because he's getting his PhD at Johns Hopkins right now. He's going to be it's in pharmaceuticals. Really interesting people. And we just marveled about how we live in such a beautiful area that people come from all over the world and all over the United States on a weekend just to go hiking here. Okay? And it makes me think of how many people are actually from here or who live here who will never go out and do these things because they're sitting in their house, glued to their cell phone, glued to their laptop, glued to their television, watching news about crap taking place so far away that they can have no direct impact on as far as making it worse or better, but which certainly has a direct impact on them in that it's really just ruining their mood, ruining their day, giving them stress, giving them anger, taking time off their lives, robbing them of time with the people that matter to them and from doing the things that they enjoy. Like being outside, sitting by your pond. If you don't have a pond, just being out in your yard and watching the birds. Today, while I was mowing grass in our man-made forest, which is really growing up now, I saw for the first time ever in my life a woodcock. No, seriously, it's not a joke. It's a bird. Google it. It's I was going in between these 2 rows of hedges, and it's bigger than a trying to think of the birds we had last year that the Bigfoot Sasquatches got when we went to the Bryan Adams concert. Quail. Bigger than a quail, not quite as big as a chicken. It was about this big. And when I saw it at first, I thought it might have been a dead chicken because sometimes the foxes, the hoxes, and the Bigfoot Sasquatches around here will get neighbors' chickens and bring them to our place and eat them. And but then it started hopping away, and it had this long beak. I'm like, what is that, a baby duck? So I made sure to Google it as soon as I took a break. But it was a woodcock. And I found out they nest on the ground under hedges in new forests. They're not an endangered species, but their numbers have been dwindling since 1970. They're losing habitat because of subdivisions, deforestation because of mostly subdivisions. So our property is ideal for them, as it is rabbits, indigo buntings, and a lot of other wildlife that needs meadow type, new forest. And we plan to keep, we've got about three acres of our properties like new forest / meadow. We intend to keep it that way by manicuring it throughout the seasons, to where we'll let a few trees mature, but the majority of it, we want it to stay that prime, ideal refuge area for, look at that beautiful butterfly. Come back. Isn't it beautiful? We want the pollinators. We've got a milkweed patch up here, so we're not letting the trees grow over that and shade out the milkweed, because that's like our monarch butterfly sanctuary. Just being good stewards of the land. So anyway, I was talking to this woman that was here to see her son, and she mentioned she had another son that's just starting his master's degree at Johns Hopkins. And I was like, oh, so are they taking after mom? Were you in the medical field? And she says, well, not really, but I was a scientist and my husband's a scientist. And I said, oh, that's interesting. Okay. And she goes, but now I'm an artist. I said, you're an artist? She goes, yeah. And I said, well, what's your main form of media in art? And she said, charcoal. She loves to draw with charcoal. And I said, well, that's interesting, because I've recently just started taking up colored pencil drawing. And so we start talking about drawing, and she's got experience with colored pencils. And I told her there are two things that amaze me about it. Number one, it's when you get to that point in the drawing where you actually see what it is you're drawing appearing to look like that which you're trying to draw. And it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did this. This apple actually looks like an apple. That's number one. And number two, I've found it to be like meditation, in that when I'm there with my pencils and the paper, that's all I'm thinking about. I'm not thinking about bills. I'm not thinking about responsibilities like what time is football practice, when's the next game. I'm not thinking about, which investment to put what's left over this month into, what's the next ex-dividend date of which stock. What about mowing the grass? Or it's just the pencil and the paper. And it's like, so if I'm there for an hour, it's like all the noise is gone. And she says, exactly. She says that's what she loves most about the charcoal drawing and the other forms of art she does. And she says, nothing matters. And she realized at one point that was so enjoyable, she stopped paying attention to geopolitical nonsense, as she called it. And this is a woman with a PhD, married to a man with a PhD, raising two sons, both of whom by the time they're finished will have PhDs. Very smart, yes, but also very educated. And typically you'll see a lot of highly educated people feel like it's their public duty to be totally aware of all current events all around the world. Otherwise, they're squandering their home. It's about being at peace with yourself and with the world around you. And if any of that chaos is causing you anguish and stress, to where you're texting everybody you know and saying, OMG, did World War III just start? What are we going to do? I'll tell you, as I just told you, I'm going to wrap this up because I want to be out here with my wife in this shade enjoying this view. Here's what you do about it. You go for a hike. You find a local concert of a band you enjoy. Go watch them. Listen to them sing. You meet strangers who are like-minded. Maybe when you're on that hike, you run into some other hikers. Talk to them for a few minutes. Find out they're from somewhere else. Welcome them to your area. You go outside. You watch the birds, the butterflies. Go around parts of your property or parts of your town. Go to a park, maybe parts of the park you've never been, and maybe you'll accidentally, I'm not saying go out there and try to flush out the birds, but maybe you'll see something you've never seen before in your life, like I did today, a woodcock. No, it's not a joke, it's a bird. Because I was outside playing rather than being inside brewing and stewing over social media or legacy media, over what's going on, all these things I have no control over. All right, so I hope you got something out of that, but my request from my buddy that I've been friends with since the first time he beat me up on the bus in kindergarten, just thought I'd talk about that. Yeah, there's some nasty stuff going on. And while it's happening, I'm going hiking and I'm going to concerts and I'm going to my son's football games and I'm spending time out here on my beautiful property with my beautiful bride dearly, aka Giggly Girl. See you guys for more next time for the most awesomest channel, the most awesomest homesteading channel on the entire internet that has absolutely nothing to do with homesteading whatsoever. Homesteading off the grid.